This year has been absolutely incredible for video games. I can't think of a year, not in recent memory anyway, that comes even remotely close to 2023. So far this year we've had Tears of the Kingdom, Dredge, Street Fighter 6, Amnesia the Bunker, Final Fantasy 16, Diablo 4, System Shock Remake, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Dead Space Remake, Metroid Prime Remaster, Pikmin 4, Baldur's Gate 3 and tons more that I'm probably forgetting. And we still have games like Starfield, Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, Lies of P, Mortal Kombat 1, Armored Core 6, Payday 3, Assassin's Creed Mirage, Forza Motorsport, Lords of the Fallen and Super Mario Bros. Wonder still to come. That is the most stacked year for gaming that I've probably ever seen. Like, there's been some good years in the past. I remember 2011 was a very good year, but I don't think I've ever experienced a year quite like this year for high quality video game experiences. And that got me thinking, that's how good this year's been for flat screen games. How good's it been for VR games? Well, I started scrolling through all of the videos I've made this year. I started rolling back all of the games I've played this year. I went on my Quest, I went on Steam, I looked on my PlayStation VR 2 library. I looked at everything that's come out so far this year. And I concluded that 2023 for VR games hasn't been quite as stacked. I started to see why there's probably been a drop off in interest from a lot of people when the output of games this year hasn't been stellar for VR users. If you're a VR user like me who also plays flat screen games, then it's not so bad. I jump between the two. VR's been great, there's been some great games this year, but flat screen games have really kept me chugging because there's been incredible content from January right through till now. If you're just a VR user though, there hasn't been that many big hitters this year. It's been a little bit of a disappointment, I would say. But that doesn't mean there haven't been good games. So I wanted to compile a list and really think about what the best VR games have been in 2023. And these are the 10 that really stood out for me. These are the 10 best VR games this year, according to me. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comments. There's one game I know you're probably going to be mad at me for not including, but that's because I haven't played it, and I can't include it if I haven't played it. These are my top 10 VR games of 2023. TV and movie tie-in games have always, historically, been complete poo. There are a few examples of games bucking this trend, but generally speaking they are things that should be avoided at all costs. But that isn't the case with Peaky Blinders: The King's Ransom. This is an incredibly faithful recreation of the hit TV show, complete with the all-star cast and some surprisingly interactive, familiar environments. Honestly, I didn't expect this one to be as interactive as it is. So much in the world can be picked up and played with, and that combined with the detailed characters, solid voice acting and great Quest 2 visuals makes for a fantastic single player experience. You'll definitely get more out of this one if you're a fan of the show. There are tons of nods and exciting set pieces that you'll no doubt get a kick out of seeing in VR form. But even without watching the original source material, there's still a well-paced gangster adventure here for those looking to immerse themselves into a VR game with a strong story and plenty of action. Have you ever worried about robots taking our jobs? Or about billionaires destroying the world for their own gain? Maybe you're not a fan of companies like Amazon and the stranglehold they have over the entire retail sector. If you answered yes to any of those questions, then Last Worker is a game that won't necessarily make you feel any better about the state of the world, but it will make you laugh whilst satirizing and skewering the state of things in hilarious and thought-provoking ways. Honestly, a game about working in an Amazon warehouse, effectively collecting items from shelves and sending them off to people who have ordered them, shouldn't be anywhere near as fun, hilarious or exciting as The Last Worker is, but its timely release and laser-focused commentary made it impossible for me to stop playing. If you want a good story that will get you thinking and keep you laughing, then The Last Worker is for you. It also has an incredible voice cast and some of the best performances I've heard in a VR game for years. If you want high quality VR puzzles and a story that will possibly make you cry, then Another Fisherman's Tale is the game for you. Without giving away too much about the story, this game puts you into the shoes of a daughter who's packing up her father's things and reminiscing about all the imaginary adventures they would go on together in her youth. It switches between a modern day drama that's filled with emotional weight and a wacky pirate themed puzzle adventure that plays out from the perspective of the toys that you used to play with as a child. The mechanics in Another Fisherman's Tale are purpose built for a VR experience. This kind of puzzle solving just wouldn't work in a flat screen game. You can chop and change your wooden hands to solve puzzles, you can detach your head sending it flying to get a better vantage of the environment, and you can even remotely control your detached hands to send them searching for items or to solve puzzles. It's some of the best puzzle solving I've played since Portal, and the story hits like a truck, especially if you're of a certain age. Easily one of the best I've played this year. Multiplayer only VR games are always risky. I've said this many times before. The player base in VR is small, and most of those players tend to bounce from game to game rather than investing large amounts of time into one experience. So multiplayer only titles can die off if the content isn't there to support repeat visits and play sessions. However, that didn't stop Triangle Factory from making Breaches, an online-only VR PvP game heavily inspired by the Rainbow Six series that ended up being the most fun I've had in multiplayer VR so far this year. Breaches plays beautifully, the systems are well implemented, the maps are exciting, the guns feel fantastic, and rappelling through a window into the defending team's building before gunning down a few of that said team's squad will never not feel awesome. It's the kind of multiplayer VR game that deserves to succeed. I'd love to see it hit other platforms like PSVR 2, and I hope the player base sticks around for future updates, maps, and modes. The original Propagation was a VR smash hit. It was a fairly simple, free, wave defense zombie shooter where you were fixed to the spot and had to survive until the end of a horrific onslaught. Everyone who played it loved it, and when the sequel was announced that wanted to make things bigger, better and more immersive, I knew we were going to get something special. What I didn't realise, however, is just how similar Propagation Paradise Hotel was going to be to the original Resident Evil. This thing really is so heavily inspired that it felt like I was stepping foot into the Spencer Mansion in VR. Exploring this zombie-filled hotel is a true survival horror experience, complete with backtracking, sparse ammo supplies, zombies that don't stay dead, and some of the most intense moments I've played in a VR horror game this year. If you love survival horror, then you owe it to yourself to play Paradise Hotel, a game that I hope sees many more sequels and expansions in the years to come. This game was made by one person. Let that sink in. Vertigo 2, a lengthy first-person action-adventure game that feels like a spiritual sequel to the Half-Life series, would be a monumental achievement for even the most seasoned VR development studio. But for one person, it's basically a miracle. Vertigo 2 doesn't feel like other VR games. It's packed with charm, humour, bright colourful characters and wacky interesting environments. It's big, bold, breathtaking and doesn't mind getting silly from time to time. I don't know any other VR games that let you squirt a giant fleshy alien face with a spray bottle filled with milk, but I'm thankful that Vertigo exists to let me do weird stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, that's what VR is all about, transporting us to strange alien places and letting us do weird and wonderful things with the creatures that live there. Vertigo 2 is brilliant. Grab it when it launches for PSVR 2. nDreams are one of the very best studios making VR games right now. Not only do they work with well-known IP to bring it respectfully into VR, see the upcoming Power Wash Simulator VR and Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost Lord, but they also know how to make top-tier original VR products. SYNAPSE is their most accomplished and well-fleshed out unique VR IP to date. It's a story-driven roguelike that feels like nothing else in VR right now, and it utilises all the features of the PSVR 2 in fantastic ways to create an experience that feels amazingly fresh. Frankly, using the built-in eye tracking to simulate telekinesis is a stroke of genius. SYNAPSE makes you feel so insanely powerful, and it's a great example of exactly why VR is so awesome. Capcom are the only traditional, large-scale video game developer who are providing consistent, high-quality VR experiences right now. With Resident Evil, they have fully embraced the medium, and so far, we've been gifted Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 4 for the Quest 2, and Resident Evil Village, all in glorious immersive virtual reality. Resident Evil Village for PSVR 2 is, in my opinion, the definitive way to play this game. The horror elements are heightened, the action is more intense, and the sheer scale of the environments, particularly the Castle Dimitrescu, need to be seen inside the headset to be believed. The best thing about these VR ports, however, is the care that's applied to them. Unique animations and VR-specific interactions mean that it isn't just a flat game modded into 3D for VR. It's a true VR experience and a game that spans around 10 to 12 hours for your first playthrough, which is a huge rarity for native VR games. I cannot wait to see Resident Evil 4 Remake in VR. It's going to be incredible. When I first saw the trailer for The Light Brigade, I thought, that looks pretty cool. That's because seeing gameplay for this World War II inspired VR roguelike doesn't do it justice. This thing feels amazing to play. The guns are punchy and exciting. The enemies are genuinely challenging. The visual aesthetic is like a weird fever dream. The boss fights are actually great, which is really hard to get right in VR, and the upgrades can combine in such a way that you could end up feeling like the most overpowered badass in the world. And even then, the game will still find a way to humble you. The Light Brigade smashed past all my expectations, and it's been one of only a few VR games that I've returned to multiple times over the course of 2023. It's infinitely replayable and immensely enjoyable. Seeing others play really doesn't showcase just how much fun it is to play this yourself, and I would urge anyone who owns a VR headset to try this one out. The second you hear that chunky, satisfying rifle audio, you'll be hooked. The number one spot couldn't be anything else. Gran Turismo 7 VR made me love a genre that I didn't care about previously. It made me run out and buy a wheel, pedals and shifter just to enhance the experience. It made me go to the cinema to watch a Gran Turismo movie that ended up being pretty damn good actually. This is the power of VR. When it's applied with love and care, it's absolute magic, and it can get you fully invested into whatever scenario or situation the game offers. I truly hope we see more VR experiences like Gran Turismo 7, big well-known IPs embracing VR and implementing it properly into their games, because that's how VR succeeds, that's how VR grows, and that's how VR potentially goes mainstream. Every single racing game should have a VR mode from now until the end of time. And that's it. Those are my top 10 VR games of 2023 so far. I'm looking at everything else that's still to come out, and there are some massive looking games in the back half of 2023, but I don't know if there's anything good enough coming to dethrone the top 5. I feel like my top 5 are pretty safe, but I would love to see some surprises, and I really want something to come out this year that blows me away and squeezes its way into the top 10 or hopefully top 5 of this list. Now, I did say at the start there was one game that a few people might be annoyed that I didn't include. That game is Ghosts of Tabor. They've done such an incredible job cultivating a player base. People love that game, they're coming back to it time and time again. As I said, multiplayer only VR is really hard and they've nailed it. I didn't include it because I've yet to jump in and play it myself. I'm sure it's amazing, but I haven't taken the plunge just yet. Let me know in the comments if you agree with this list. Let me know in the comments what your top 10 is. Just let me know what you've been playing this year. Has it been a disappointing year for you, or has it lived up to expectation? And what are you waiting for in the back half of 2023? Hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please do leave a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you soon for another one. Take care.